All right, so you've got a class on second language acquisition coming up. Maybe a big discussion is on the schedule, and you want to walk in with some killer ideas to share. Well, you came to the right place. We're going to get you totally prepped. Our goal here is pretty simple. We're going to arm you with the main concepts and a few really good examples so you feel confident jumping into the conversation. Think of this as your personal pre-game warm-up for that class. So, here's the plan. First, we'll touch on why this stuff even matters. Then, we're diving into the single biggest debate in the whole field. And we'll wrap up with a toolkit of actual research methods you can mention in class. Sound good? Let's do it. Okay, first things first. Why should anyone care about second language acquisition? I mean, beyond just, getting a good grade. Well, it turns out the answers have these huge real-world consequences that pop up everywhere. Just think about it for a second. Understanding how we pick up new languages is absolutely crucial for international business. It completely shapes how governments create language policies that affect millions of people. It's the foundation for bilingual education programs and for how we can best support immigrant communities. So when you're digging into SLA, you're not just looking at language. You're really getting at the core of how humans learn, period. And for anyone in education, this teaching triangle is such a powerful idea. It shows that being a great teacher isn't just about knowing the language and the culture inside and out. Nope, that's only one corner of the triangle. The other two are the teacher, and maybe most importantly, the learners and their whole learning process. SLA research, that's what gives us the tools to understand that entire bottom corner. Okay, now for the main event. If you want one big, juicy idea to bring to your class discussion, this is it. The entire field is basically defined by this central conflict, this great divide between two totally different ways of seeing the world. So on one side, you have the qualitative paradigm. The easiest way to think about this is like an anthropologist or documentary filmmaker. They want to understand the story, the process, the why, and the how. They're all about the rich, messy human experience. Then, on the other side, you have the quantitative paradigm. This is more like a classic scientist in a lab coat. They're focused on measurable outcomes, asking how many and how much, trying to find hard facts and clear causes. And this chart really shows you just how deep those differences go. Just look at the words they use. The qualitative side is described as naturalistic and uncontrolled, trying to get the insider's perspective. They're looking for rich data. Now look at the quantitative side. Obtrusive and controlled, seeking an outsider's perspective to get hard, replicable data. It's like they're from two different planets, which of course leads to totally different kinds of studies. But here's the modern take on all this, and this is a really smart point to make in class. It's not really a battle where one side has to crush the other. Most researchers now see it more like a big toolbox. You've got all these different tools, from qualitative to quantitative, and the research question you're asking tells you which tool to pull out. So let's actually peek inside that toolbox and see how this all works in the real world. You can actually map out the main research methods on a line, a spectrum, going all the way from one approach to the other. And here it is, that continuum in action. Way over on the far left, you're in the deep end of the qualitative pool. You've got methods like just observing people, basically watching them in their natural habitat. But as you move to the right, you can see everything gets a little more structured, a little more controlled, until you get all the way to the far right and you're in the pure quantitative zone with the classic experiment. So let's grab a concrete example from the qualitative side. Take participant observation. This is so cool. It's when a researcher actually joins the group they're studying. They might literally enroll in a Spanish class themselves, not just to learn Spanish, but to experience and document what it feels like to be a learner from the inside out. And then at the complete opposite extreme, you've got the experiment. This is where a researcher might get two perfectly matched groups of learners. They'll give one group a new teaching method, that's the treatment, and the other group gets the regular old method. By controlling for everything else, they can try to prove that the new method actually caused the students to get better scores. All right, we're in the home stretch. This last section is your practical toolkit. These are the specific, concrete examples of how researchers gather data that you can bring up in your lesson to show you really get it. This quote from the linguist S. Pitt Corder just nails the biggest problem researchers have. You can't just turn on a recorder and wait for a learner to happen to use, say, a really complex verb tense. It might never come up. You could be waiting for days. So researchers had to get creative and invent clever ways to elicit the language they need, to basically draw it out of people. And here are 4 fantastic examples for your toolkit. First, there's elicited imitation. You ask a learner to repeat a sentence that's way too long to just memorize. This forces them to rebuild it using their own internal grammar rules, which tells you what they actually know. Then you have role play, where you set up a situation like, okay, pretend you need to politely ask your boss for a day off. This tests their social language skills. Guided composition is where you give them a comic strip with no words and have them tell the story. And of course, there's the classic oral interview, which is just a conversation where the researcher is subtly steering things to get the learner to use certain language. Now, here's a really sharp point you can make. It's called the variability problem. Researchers discovered that a student's performance can be all over the map depending on the task. They might totally ace a grammar question on a multiple choice test, but then 5 minutes later in a real conversation, they can't use that same grammar at all. This is a huge deal. It means no single tool can give you the whole picture. Each one just shows you a different little piece of the puzzle. And that brings us right back to the big central question. How do we get closer to the truth? Do we do it with the rich, deep, but maybe subjective stories from the qualitative side? Or with the hard, objective, but maybe a little artificial data from the quantitative side? Well, there's no easy answer, and that tension is what makes this field so exciting to study. It's the perfect question to leave you with, and for you to bring up in your next class. You've got this.